Hi guys, today we are going to be taking a look at the new Runcam Split. So it's called the Split because the camera and camera sensor is split from the main processor, which is on a separate board. So this allows you to have a very small FPV camera and then hide the rest of the gubbins inside of the quad. To power this, you're going to need 5 volts that can provide a minimum of 650 milliamps. So just remember that when you are installing this. It's capable of 1080p at 60 frames a second and lower, so 30 frames and 720 as well. Now, as you know, if you've seen my previous video, I've already stuck up some raw footage from this, so that's why it's not looking fresh out of the box. Now, when I first saw this, I thought it was just a copy of their Runcam Mini, and it's not. It's actually smaller. It's completely different, in fact. So if you do manage to break one of your cameras, then you will have to swap it out for one of the original Split cameras instead of a Mini. The lens has a view of 165 degrees, and people say that it looks something like the GoPro lens at 2.5. Now, one thing I quickly want to mention was that I was a little bit gutted when GoPro decided to discontinue their HD Cube camera, the Runcam 3, after GoPro basically forced them to. Now, I'm really happy to see that they've brought this out, and now I totally understand why they decided to discontinue, because they had this up their sleeve. So just like the Runcam 3, you do have the option for Wi-Fi, so you can connect to it with your phone. So tucked away inside the box, along with the cables and the mounts, you'll find the Wi-Fi connection. Now, you're not going to keep this on there at all times. You can just press it on, connect with your phone, do what you need to do, and then just disconnect it. So if you're on iOS, you will be able to update your app now and be able to use this. If you're on Android, then I will put a link below for you to click on to update your app. However, depending when you're watching this, you might be able to just update through things like the Google Play Store already. So there's 2 cables included in the box, one being this USB cable, which is split at the ends here, and then another cable which just basically has 3 pins in it for 5 volt, ground, and your signal. So all you're going to need to do is just treat this like a normal camera with 5 volts going in. You've got your ground and your video out. And all of this is clearly labelled on the sticker that comes on the board already. You'll also notice the battery positive and negative at the top right hand side there. You can connect a 1 cell LiPo there, so a maximum of 4.2 volts up in the top corner there, and run this off of that. So I'm going to take this sticker off and show you inside. So the first thing that jumps out at you when you take that off, you can see the micro SD card holder here. Now, you need to be super careful with this because it's super fragile. When you install a card in there, I would probably just leave it in there, to be honest. I wouldn't be taking this in and out. It's going to be a little bit hard to once this is actually installed in a frame. And then if you want to access the files on there, then just plug into the USB that's on the side. Now, on the right hand side, you can see we've got some extra solder pads here, and I think this may be for future expansion to possibly stop recording through your receiver, so you can actually press a switch on your radio and have it stop recording. Going back to the SD card, you can see I've just moved that silver clip there, and well, it's fell off. So as I mentioned earlier, you need to be super careful when installing your micro SD card. The sides that hold the hinge side on are very weak, and I've already bent mine, so I have to stick it back into place using a small spike here. It's the same for the other side, so just take care when installing. And once you've finally got a micro SD card installed, I would access the files through the USB on the side. Taking off the cover on the other side reveals just more electronics and our 2 buttons. So we've got our button to stop recording or turn the unit off. Our other button is for turning on the Wi-Fi or switching through the menus. So let's get it all wired up. As I mentioned, you get this cable in the box. It's just a simple 5 volt ground and signal cable. So I've wired that into a video transmitter here, so I can put power into the transmitter, take the 5 volt out to power the camera, the video to get the video for the camera, and obviously the ground for ground. This simply just plugs into the 3-pin connector on the side of the unit. So now, as soon as I power this up through the video transmitter, the camera will then turn on and start recording. So as I power up, you hear 3 beeps and then a single beep. The single beep signals that it's just started recording. In the top right hand side, you will then see a little red circle that will be blinking to say that the camera is actually recording, so you can actually tell through your FPV screen that you are recording. So a lot of people are worried about lag being introduced in the system due to the recording. However, from my very basic tests, I can't actually tell if there is any lag on there. Some people report maybe 50 to 51 milliseconds of lag, but that shouldn't really affect your flight. So going to the buttons, we'll have a quick look now. So pressing the button once whilst it's recording will then stop the recording. At the moment you can see we've got a little red light just blinking very faintly there to say we are recording. So with the recording stopped, if we hold the other button down for a little while, you can see that the LED changes to green and we're now in photo mode. This also changes on the FPV screen and gives you more of a 16:9 picture. The stills themselves actually look okay, well, when you've not got my face in the screen anyway, and they come out at a file at about 1.3 megabytes each. Holding the mode button down one more time takes you into the settings menu. This allows you to change all the settings just looking through your FPV screen. So here you can see we can change our resolution settings from 1080 60 frames, 1080 30 frames down to 720 at 60 frames. The camera is also capable of loop recording, and you can choose the loop recording whether it be 1 minute, 3 minutes or 5 minutes or completely off. I'm just going to leave mine at off. Down to auto recording, so this is basically when you turn the camera on or power up your system, do you want it to automatically start recording? I'm going to leave mine at on because it's just very handy, and from the factory the wide dynamic range is set to on. So if we go down to image, we can see that we can change our exposure. Now I'm not 100% sure if this is changing the exposure on the HD recording or on the FPV, but I'm going to take a wild guess at this being a global setting, so it's going to affect both. We can then go down to image flip. We'll just leave this as off. You don't want to be messing around with the image flip really, unless you're going to be mounting the camera upside down. Metering mode is usually best at set at average, just so that the majority of the picture is all nicely metered. Field of view, again, wide, medium and narrow. Again, most of us are just going to select wide and just keep it at that. Going down to the TV out settings, we can select full screen. On this we can choose off or on, leave it at on. The TV mode is basically your NTSC and PAL settings. Out the box mine came set at NTSC. Backing out of there and going down to the micro SD card allows you to see the micro SD card information, so you can see how much you've got left to record on. As you can see, I've used most of the 4 gig card that I had in there at the time. And it's very simple if you want to erase that card or format it. If we go back into the micro SD card, go down to format, we can just completely wipe the whole card and start filling it up with brand new footage. Going down to general, first off we've got the USB connection. I have mine set to PC connection, so when I do plug it into my computer it can access all of the files on the memory card. You do have a remote control section there, which I'm assuming at some point you can connect to your receiver and then stop recording, but I've got no information on that at the moment. Going down to the feedback beep, that's just basically every time you press a button do you want to hear it beep. Auto power up, so as soon as you power the video transmitter up or whatever you've got wired into the 5 volts, do you want the camera to power up or do you want to have to press a button down? Power saving mode just basically turns it off after a certain amount of time. Again, I'm just going to leave mine on because it's going to be powered from the flight battery itself, and that's basically it for the menu. So what I'm going to do now is overlay the DVR footage over the HD footage. Now you'll notice it's slightly out of sync here. That's just because of my editing. It will sync up a little bit more towards the end. So one thing you will notice straight away is that the FPV camera isn't as wide as the HD recording. So you can clearly see that the HD is more of a 16:9 and the FPV being more of a 4:3 picture. Obviously the audio is working here. I was just testing to see if I could see any lag. So here I'm framing up the edges of the house on the FPV camera, and you can clearly see on the HD you get the edges of the house and beyond. Now the FPV camera is really wide, so it's not something to worry about here. You may be thinking, oh well, the camera's too narrow, but judging from what I can see it's not actually narrow, it's still very wide. So all I'm doing here is covering up the camera to make it very dark and then quickly exposing it just to see how the cameras react. So does the FPV react slightly different to the HD? And it looks about the same to me. Now here's something interesting. As I'm walking back in towards the shed, you'll see that the memory card actually completely fills up, and then we get this come up on the screen. This isn't particularly ideal, as obviously if you're running a race you don't want that to appear and then put you off. So Runcam, if you are listening, it would be nice if you could put in the menu whether you have this come on or if you can disable it. So last thing I'm going to do here is test the Wi-Fi. You can see that I've actually got it plugged in. Now I was able to connect to it using the Wi-Fi app that I currently had, but then some of the settings weren't enabled, so I went to my iOS App Store and updated it, and you'll see that things then started working properly. All you have to do is when you get to the main menu, click on the Runcam here and then select Runcam Split and connect to the camera. The password is 12345678990. You can later change this password through the app as well if you want to. Now I'm not going to sit here going through all of the basics from the app. It does allow you to change a lot more things than you can do through the FPV. The FPV just gives you some of the basic things that you might want to do. So you would only really connect the Wi-Fi module if you really want to go in depth and change a lot of the settings. Or if you want to review something that you've just flown or downloaded down to your phone to then share on social media. So that's it for today's video on the Runcam Split. I'm going to get this put into a machine now and then we'll go out and do some flying and see what some of the flight footage looks like. Now I have seen a lot of your questions from my previous video and I will answer them in the next video once I've done a bit more testing. So that's it for now guys. Thank you very much for watching and I'll be back soon.